if that starts to happen too soon before you've been educated, like sometimes like people will spontaneously awaken the Kundalini without the use of a guru and the stabilizing effect of a guru and lineage. And the Kundalini will waken up and they'll, before they're ready for it, and it's just so wild and it disrupts their view of reality so totally that they usually have a pretty solid bout with madness before they come back into what we call sanity.
And what
That's a pause. Let me finish. The whole process of, in the same sense, when you start, once the Kundalini is awakened and you start having these deep meditations, and the conversation with the deep self and the conversation with the small case self starts happening, just like we were talking about with the space of Shiva, where the presence of Shiva as it emerges disrupts the self-view so totally that an emotional kind of battle has to ensue and to stabilize the identity. Over the period of time, see, like when you're studying yoga and you're running inside a lineage-based method of training, that's one of the good things that happens is that, see, those forces they are conscious, and the emergence of their presence, if it happens at just the right amount of speed, well, you'll be blasted into, or you'll, like after like an intensive or after a yagna, or something, you're definitely put past what you're capable of handling, but not so far that it's a disaster, and you have time, you're given time to form a new identity, and then that becomes the new norm. So part of the method is like one of the reasons why we just have this constant exposure over and over again, where we'll meditate in a certain way for a month or so, and then we'll have an intensive, and there's a big injection of energy of some kind, and a new basis or structure is placed in there. And then when you settle in, that's there, and you settle in, and you just feel comfortable, whereas before you wouldn't have felt comfortable. Or last year you wouldn't have been comfortable at this level of emptiness. But now it feels quite normal. In a year from now, the most intense meditation you're having, this year is going to be your waking state next year. You'll just be walking around in that state all the time. You just get used to it. So part of the trick is to stay calm and know that it's just different levels of attention involved. It's like when you get up into an area where you're unfamiliar with, don't panic, don't be upset. Just rest in yourself. Breathe deeply. Use the breath. The breath is in relationship to consciousness, in relationship to the human body, which is an important vehicle. I mean, for a lot of its problems, it's also very important as a housing for the spirit. And once you understand it, it's a great friend. It's, not a problem at all. It's helpful to read. It's like, so when you think, when you start having experiences, zooming into outer space, if you've read accounts of other people that have traveled the path, if you read some scriptures, you'll spontaneously see that, oh, this is what's supposed to happen. This is the actual fruit of this kind of path. And so your mind will stay calmer. You won't get frightened. The main trick is to not get upset. And then, and on the second level, at first is that you just get used to the fact that your consciousness is moving. It kind of seems like it's, in this, what's the word? I want to say vascular, but that's the wrong word. Vacillating, right. Up and down sense. But that's not really the case. It just seems that way. And the rest of, as far as the actual structuring of a tonal, what I did is I just basically built my tonal out of the principles of yoga. So after a while, It's like those principles really work. I mean, it's like if you really do cut down on the 6 poisons, hatred, greed, lust, sloth, envy, and jealousy, you really stop those and really try to come from a space of selfless service, etc., which automatically has the effect of bringing you out of yourself, a small sense of self. And when you commit your being to an external form of service, somehow a kind of strength comes to you where you don't fear your own destruction. And you don't think of it, when some part of you that is familiar goes away, if you're watching it so carefully, it seems very dramatic. But if you're more externally oriented, so of course it's at the right time. There's times when you have to pay attention internally. When something goes away, you just say, well, it was time for that to go away, and a new thing emerges, and you start getting the hang of things coming and going in your psyche. But at the same time, for a foundation, you just run on the basic principles of yogic tonal. Know that you are the self, all that kind of stuff, coming from the higher sensibilities. Use will to diminish acting from the lower sensibilities. Do those things that increase your sense of closeness to the self. And of course, any one of those things you have to be prepared to give up, because they're only tools. They're the thorn to remove the thorn. Once something goes away, I mean, when the self is there at the door and wants to come in, there are no qualities. Don't think, this is pure and that's bad, because there's nothing. It's all the same at that point. So you just have to learn how to ride with a changing terrain.